Okay. Will the meeting please come to order? There are still people checking in. However, I have promised everyone to try to get you out of here as expeditiously as possible. And so I'm going to begin the opening remarks while they're still checking in and hoping that they will have been seated by the time we start the actual meeting. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. It really shows your public spirit and your interest in being the legislative branch of the government of West Newbury, and I commend you for being here. I'd also like to commend the fire department, the police department, the Department of Public Works, the Department of Public Health, the Board of Selectmen, and the other town officials for the hours of work that they have put in planning and executing this meeting here in the ball fields. So, we are meeting for an annual town meeting pursuant to a warrant issued on the 28th day of April, 2020 for an annual town meeting. Has the town been warned of the business before it?
Yes.
There are town employees who are not residents of West Newbury who occasionally have information that we would like to seek. They include, but are not limited to, Michael Dwyer, the fire chief, Jeff Duran, the chief of police, Mike Gutti, the Board of Water Commissioners, Meredith Stone, the assessor, Maureen Curtin, the assistant assessor, Teresa Woodbury, the head of the Council on Aging, Leah Zambernardi, the planning director, Stephen Frontiera, the town accountant businessman, Stephanie Frontiera, the town accountant and business manager, and Wayne Amaral, the director of the Public Works, Jenny Walsh, assistant to the town manager and finance department, Corinne Flaherty, the director of the GAR library, and Tracy Watson, the executive director of the Housing Authority. Is there any objection to having town employees who are not voting members address the town when necessary? The usual introductions. I'm Casey Swallow, I'm the moderator, and I am the arbiter of the rules of debate. The town council and town clerk is Michael McCarron, who's seated behind me at the table on the right, well, on my right. The Board of Selectmen include David Archibald, who's the chair, Glenn Kemper, and Rick Parker. Rick Parker is sitting at the table on my left. He will be reading all of the motions. This does not mean that all of the motions were presented by the Board of Selectmen, but in order to expedite the meeting, rather than having people get up and go to the microphones and then sit down again, the board has selected Rick to be the selectman who will read all of the motions for everyone. The rest of the Board of Selectmen are sitting at the tables over here on my left. The Finance Committee includes Gary Roberts, the chair, Forbes Dury, the vice chair, Brad Bowden, the secretary, Nathan Kelly, Jessica Nizick, Jim Sparalakis, and Angus Jennings ex officio. Most of them are also seated in the tables over on my left. Gary Roberts will be making all the recommendations of the Finance Committee for the same reason that we have one selectman making all of the motions. The articles on the warrant constitute the agenda for the meeting. No business may come before the meeting unless it is in an article on the warrant. I will read each article and then ask for the recommendation of the Finance Committee, which will be given by Mr. Roberts. A motion must be made before any discussion can take place. That motion will be made by Rick Parker, the selectman. A positive motion may be debated, amended, and then voted on by either hand or counted vote. As you checked in, you were all given two voting cards, one red and one green. The green voting card is to be used when you're voting yes, aye. The red voting card is for when you're voting no, nay. When you use your voting cards, please raise your hands high in the air so that I can see all of the cards clearly. And keep them raised until I announce the vote. If it's too close for me to call the vote just from a show of hands, we will have the tellers come and count the votes. Each speaker I'm sorry, I skipped a part. A negative motion, which we will have several of today, is to take no action. That can only be debated on the desire to take no action. If you wish to discuss something on which the motion is to take no action, you would want to vote no on that motion. The form of debate is one of polite and just polite. That's good enough. Discussion. You may speak only when recognized by the moderator. However, today we have 2 microphones, one on my left, one on my right, one labeled green, one labeled red. So you don't have to wait for me to recognize you to speak. You simply get in line next to the microphone that you wish to use. If you support the motion, you line up on the green side. If you're opposed to the motion, you line up on the red side. Please line up against the fence. There are markings along the grass. You can see orange markings that indicate 6-foot distancing between the speakers. And we will alternate the positive and the negative speakers until everyone has had a chance to speak. You're limited to 2 minutes, and I'm actually going to keep time because we want to get this thing over with as soon as possible. But if you want to speak more than once, you're going to have to wait until the other people in line have had a chance to speak, and then I will let people go to the line again. We'll maintain, here's where it was. The form of debate will be in the spirit of free and open debate, and so therefore there are no personal attacks. No comments should be made to specific individuals. There should be no cross-examination, and all questions must be asked through the moderator and directed to the moderator. And only the moderator can ask the opinion of town council. Now, this is a very unusual format for our town meeting, and we are trying to expedite it as much as possible. However, it is not my intention or anyone else's intention to keep you from exercising your rights to debate and vote. If for any reason you feel that you are being prohibited from participating actively, please stand up and say very loudly, "Point of order." Point of order is a motion that points out something that's not proper, and it can interrupt the speaker. So if you have a point of order that you think you're being prohibited from discussing things properly, you can go to the microphone directly. The speaker should yield the microphone to the person making the point of order. So simply step out of the way. Then after the point of order is dealt with, we'll go back to the normal speakers. Finally, it is our custom in West Newbury to discourage motions to call the question. This custom protects the rights of the minority and ensures adequate discussion. However, the moderator reserves the right to move things along, and it is here that I ask you to exercise your common sense. First, please do not return to the mic until all other speakers have had a chance to speak. When the discussion becomes one-sided or repetitive, and when one line is still all the way down to the end of the fence and the other line has no one in it, we've clearly exhausted the need for debate, and please keep that in mind before you ask to be recognized again. When we get to the line item budget, I will explain how we're going to handle that today. And finally, town meeting is the oldest form of local government in the United States, dating from the 17th century. It's the purest form of democracy where citizens vote directly to control the government of their towns. Our open town meeting in West Newbury is the legislative branch of the town government. Our actions today will provide the funding necessary for the selectmen and town manager to run the town, and they will set our tax rate under the restrictions of Proposition 2.5. We exercise our will in town government through the power of the purse. No money can be expended that has not been appropriated by town meeting. At town meeting, we also enact and modify bylaws. So, okay, I have a few things to emphasize. If you cannot or do not want to wear a mask, there is seating over here. There's seating on my right for people who don't want to wear masks. However, we have required that masks be worn in general. And so please keep in mind that if you don't wear your mask when you are seated among the voters, you are actually impinging on someone else's rights. People have come in good spirit, knowing that their health is being protected as much as we possibly can. And so it is imperative that you keep your masks on at all times if you are sitting either in the field or over in the parking lot area. There is this area where you can sit without a mask if you desire. I'd also like to point out that there are 2 sets of portable toilets, one at the back of the field and one set over on the side. And in addition, the annex is open and you can use the bathrooms in the annex. The fire department has set up a cooling tent and first aid station back behind the parking lot here. So if you have problems with heat or you're feeling ill, you can go back to the cooling station or the first aid station and get some help. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about the conduct of the meeting? Seeing none, we'll proceed with Article 1 and 2, which actually, Article 1 was the election, which we already had, and so we'll start with Article 2, and all I'm going to say about Article 2 is that we have dispensed with any reports from town officers and committees to make the meeting as short as possible. So we'll move on to Article 3, which is the line item budget. The way we're going to handle the line item budget today is a slight departure from what we've done in the past. Normally, I read the whole line, and then the recommendation of the Finance Committee, and the recommendation of the Finance Committee for each line becomes the motion on the floor. Today, I'm only going to read the number of the category. So for example, the first category is moderator. If you look over under the Finance Committee proposed, you'll see that they proposed $200 for salary and wages and $60 for expenses. If you wish to discuss either of those lines, you should call loudly, please, hold. Then I will go down to number 2, and I'm only going to say selectmen and pause. If you wish to discuss any of the 3 lines under selectmen, please loudly call hold. We will go through all of the lines, and then we will go back and pick up those on which there was a hold. If you've placed a hold on the line, please make your way to one of the microphones so that you can state your concern or interest in that line. For people who are sitting in the parking area, there's a microphone right here, so you don't have to go all the way down to those microphones. And for people who are sitting in the no mask area, you'll make your way around the bandstand, and you can use that microphone right there. Any questions? Okay, we'll start with number 1, moderator. Number 2, selectman. Number 3, town manager. Number 4, finance committee. Number 5, board of assessors. Number 6, finance department. Number 7, special counsel. Number 8, town clerk, town council. Number 9, board of registrars, elections. Number 10, conservation commission.
Hold.
Number 11, planning board. Number 12, Board of Appeals. Number 13, Open Space Committee. Number 14, Cable Advisory Committee. Number 15, Police Department.
Hold.
Number 16, Fire Department. Number 17, Ambulance Service. Number 18, Inspection Department. Number 19, Emergency Management Agency. Number 20, Animal Control Officer. Number 21, Harbor Master. Number 22, Public Safety Dispatch. Number 23, Pentucket. Number 24, Whittier. Number 25, Essex North Shore Agricultural. That was number 25, I'm sorry. Essex North Shore Agricultural. Number 26, Department of Public Works.
Hold.
Number 27, Board of Health. Number 28, Council on Aging. Number 29, Community Center Committee. Number 30, Veterans.
Hold.
Number 31, Library.
Hold.
Number 32, Recreation. Number 33, Mill Pond Operating Expenses. Number 34, Bandstand. Number 35, Historical Commission. Number 36, Cultural Council. Number 37, Debt Service. Number 38, Essex County Retirement Fund. Number 39, Unemployment Compensation. Number 40, Employees' Health Insurance. Number 41, Medicare Insurance, FICA. Number 42, OPEB. Number 43, Insurance and Bonds. Number 44, Transfers Out Capital Stabilization. That's the end of the categories, and we'll go back and pick up the first hold, which was number 2, Selectmen.
That was me, and I would have Mr. Jennings address that.
This is Angus Jennings, the town manager. I believe that Chairman Archibald put a hold on this item in anticipation of potential questions, because as you can see from the FY19 and FY20, there were no salary and wages budgeted in the selectmen line item, and in proposed FY21, there are proposed salaries and wages. So the board wanted to make sure that people understood there is no change to the staffing headcount. This is simply, there have been some changes in employee job descriptions in the last year or so. And so there's an existing position that's currently funded in the finance department and town manager budgets. It's a combination in the current fiscal year. That position is proposed entirely in the Board of Selectmen budget for next year as a better reflection of the work that that employee does.
Is there any further discussion? If not, the motion on the floor is to appropriate $32,860 for selectmen salary and wages. All those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. It appears unanimous. The next hold is under the Conservation Commission. your microphone.
I would just like to alleviate the discrepancy between the selectmen's vote and the FinCom proposed vote on the Conservation Commission salary and wages line item. A difference of $1,500. I would request that the someone from the FinCom address that.
So during, this is Angus Jennings, Town Manager. So during the budget process, the Conservation Commission had proposed an increase in both hours and rate of pay for the conservation agent. And the selectmen proposed budget does carry an increase of 2 hours per week for that position, but does not carry a wage increase above cost of living, which is what everyone else gets. The Finance Committee budget does carry the hours, the additional 2 hours a week, plus a 6% increase compared to a 2% cost of living. That was proposed by the commission based on their research and intended to bring the wages more in line with what other agents pay or paid.
Is there any discussion? If not, the motion on the floor is the Finance Committee proposal, $27,965. All those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. The ayes have it. The next hold is on line 15, Police Department.
Madam Moderator, I have a question about the Finance Committee recommended line item on police overtime wages. Something that's been going on for quite a long time. The police department has been adding personnel. We have more full-time personnel than we used to. And there was always the indication that when we added officers, full-time officers, that the overtime budget would ultimately go down. And that has not been the case. The request for overtime request was, you see, 55 was actually the FY20 budget, which is this year, was 55,000. This year, the requested budget was 61,000. So the overtime budget was actually going up $6,000. When we've added officers, there should be more people that have completed their training. So there should be less need for overtime. And so, in light of that, I've been trying to get the overtime budget down, and I would make a motion that the overtime budget should be 50,000 this year.
Second.
This is a motion to amend. Is there discussion on the motion to change the amount for police overtime wages from $60,791 to $50,000?
Madam Moderator.
Mr. Roberts.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Moderator. This issue was brought to us by the town manager. The Board of Selectmen decided far after the budget had been built that they wanted to take money out of the police budget. Of course, all of us are concerned with overtime and public safety as it is, as Selectman Archibald alluded to, a problem. However, you should give the department head an opportunity to work around the problem, and the town manager brought it to us and said that he really didn't have the chance to state his case, that the money would just be eliminated. I like to save money probably more than anybody associated with the town, but police overtime isn't simply overtime and a failure to adequately staffed. Some of it's, training, and some of it's court time, and some of it deals with sick time because there are required officers that need to be on duty. So I agree that it needs to be dealt with, but I think you should collaborate with the police chief and not just arbitrarily remove money from the budget. Thank you.
Chief Duran.
Good morning, Chief Durand. The requested amount of overtime was figured in. There's so much training that's required of the officers each year. As I mentioned, we're at 9 full-time officers now. Going forward with the coronavirus, shift coverage, we can't really measure what's going to happen down the road. Also, this past year, the required training we were able to complete at the academy, which cut a lot of overtime out. I spoke with the academy people last week, and they don't know if they're going to be able to have in-service again, which means we're going to have training at the station on weekends and also hire instructors. So we've level funded the last 2 years at $55,000. Going backwards from there, I don't think is a good move. And the amount requested is built, trying to look forward what's going to happen, which obviously we don't really know, like I said, with the virus, et cetera.
Is there any further discussion? This discussion is on the motion to amend the amount down to $50,000. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your green card. All those opposed to the amendment, please raise your red card. It's too close to call. We have 3 tellers. So, Peg, would you take care of this and the non-masked people? Okay. Cheryl, would you please count everyone to the left of the green microphone here, my left? And Posey, would you please count everyone? There are people sitting in the middle. That's a mistake, but that's okay, you can stay there. But there's a line that goes down to a garbage can down there. So, Posey, would you count everyone to the right of that chalk line? Okay, we'll keep going into, we don't want to be confusing. Now that you're here, okay. That's really not very... You have a lot more, Cheryl, than I to count. Why is she going? No, we have people over here. Okay, okay. Do you two see the people with the red and green umbrellas here? Do you see you see the red and green umbrellas? Okay, they are to the right, my right, of the line I want you to count. So, Posey, you're counting everybody, people in the red and green umbrellas, and everybody else that's on the right of them. And Cheryl, you're counting everybody that's to the left of the people with the red and green umbrellas. Is that clear? Okay, and you're counting here and there. Okay, now, folks, it's really important that you raise your cards high and keep them raised, because this is going to be difficult for the tellers. No, don't raise the red cards yet. First of all, we're going to do all those, this is in favor of the amendment. All those in favor, please raise your green cards and keep them raised. The motion fails. 136 no, 83 aye, which puts the main motion on the floor as the Finance Committee recommendation. Is there further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. The ayes have it. The next hold is on the Department of Public Works.
So the hold was.
Rick, state your name and
Oh,
position,
yeah,
please.
this is Rick Parker, Board of Selectmen. The hold was placed because we're proposing the addition of $2,198 per year to the town buildings operating expenses. And this would be to account for maintenance on something we'll be voting on later. EV charging stations will be on the special town meeting warrant. When we originally proposed the article for the charging stations, we hadn't accounted for the need for maintenance and warranty plan, beyond the standard warranty. After talking with people with 3 other communities where they currently have charging stations installed, it became clear that not going ahead with a maintenance plan was foolish because the chance of having, because it's a publicly accessible piece of equipment, right next to a parking lot, there's ample opportunity for damage or failures of the equipment. And this was to account for that. And it became clear from the experiences with the other communities that they felt that this was a real necessity. And so based on their experience, we feel we should add that $2,198 per year, which, you say 2396, I'm sorry, did I do my math wrong? Okay, so I'm sorry, that was my mistake. I did the math up here. So it's 2396 per year. So the total would be, okay, so the total would now be $120,246 as opposed to what's shown of $117,850.
Is this an amendment to change the number?
Yeah, I'm sorry, so this is an amendment to change the number.
Okay, this was a motion. Under the Department of Public Works, Town Buildings Operating Expenses, the Finance Committee recommendation is $117,850. The proposed amendment would raise that to 120 what? $120,246. Is there any discussion? Yes, just come to the microphone.
Jean Lambert, River Road. Am I coming through?
Mhm.
Fine. I just wanted to know the extent to which these maintenance expenses could be offset by the revenues from the charging stations. Is that part of the picture, please?
Mr. Parker.
As things currently stand, because we're going into this with no experience in usage rate, that was not the plan. With time and when we have experience of usage, then for future years that might be appropriate. This is actually what's being proposed is a 5-year plan, so this would be a recurring charge of just under $2,400 for the next 4 years. And again, we don't have any experience yet as far as what usage rate will be. But it seems like a sort of an amenity to residents for what's a growing vehicle class. And we expect in the future that many more people are going to have vehicles that plug in. So we're trying to account for that in the future.
Mr. Baker?
Why is this being done in the line item budget rather than in the motion for the special meeting that we're going to deal with? That would be the appropriate time, because if we vote it here and it gets voted down in the special meeting, then this money's just in the account without having any purpose. You know, I could go about debating the whole merits of this article. First of all, I'm unhappy with the fact that it's not at least revenue neutral. We're going to be paying for anyone with electric cars. That's 2.5% of the population, and those 2.5% of the population get discounted electricity. And I've also not seen anything in this proposal that prevents people from just, particularly when you set these charging stations up here at Town Hall, from parking their car there all day long or all night long. You know, the neighbors, rather than installing a charging station in their house, they'll be able to park their cars here and charge off of the town at a discounted rate, because we're not including the cost of the station fully in the fees we're planning on paying. Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
Mr. Parker?
Suggesting that people will not be paying for the power that they, or the energy that they consume, that they take off the EV charging stations, is 100% incorrect. They will in fact be paying for the energy that they consume, plus a surcharge to cover a charge that to the company that does the online, handles the online information. Essentially, when you choose to charge it at one of these locations, you'll be paying a small convenience fee beyond what it would cost you to charge at home. Again, it's 100% incorrect that the power will be given away.
Mr. Drury?
Forbes Dury, Finance Committee. Just would like to remind the voters that the amendment that's being made right now is to ask the town of West Newbury to vote for something which is supporting an amendment which will come later on. So it's sort of putting the cart before the horse, in addition to all the other reservations that the Finance Committee had about the article itself.
Mr. Jennings?
Angus Jennings, Town Manager. Totally recognize and agree that it is cart before the horse, but I want people to understand why it's being proposed within the line item budget rather than within the article on the EV charging stations. That's because there's a long-standing tradition that once an article is posted with a certain amount, to increase that amount by $2,400 would be outside the scope of that article. If the moderator felt that would be in order on this one, you could wrap this $2,400 into that article, but we thought it might be cleaner to do it this
What
way.
is the proposed amount in the article?
It's a little over 8,000, about
And this is 2,400?
2,400.
Hmm?
But yeah, so that's why the sequence is definitely awkward. We understand that, but that's why it was done that way.
In fact, it has always been our tradition that within an article, the amount can be lowered in the motion but not raised. And so this is an awkward situation. I will point out that just because money is appropriated doesn't necessarily mean it will be spent, so that if that article should be defeated and this funding is not required, it doesn't have to be spent. And that's about all I can say about it. It's awkward because of the juxtaposition of the two, of the line item budget and the article. Is there anyone else who wishes to address this before I recognize Mr. Baker again?
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Bowden.
Brad Bodwin, Finance Committee. I just wanted to make it clear that the Finance Committee considered this change earlier today, and we unanimously voted against it. So the Finance Committee are, again, fellow citizens that review financial prospects of the town. So there's that.
Mr. Baker.
Now, I just want to point out that, yes, there is a fee on top of the cost of electricity. I believe that goes to a third party and not to the town. And the town has this $2,400 expense, plus the capital of $8,000 that is not going to be reimbursed by the users of this. How much is the grant? That $8,000 part of the grant?
But that's in a later article. I don't know if it's legitimate.
Is there any further discussion? This motion is on the motion to amend the amount upward to $120,246 to account for maintenance of a proposed charging station. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your cards, your green cards. All those opposed to the amendment, please raise your red card. Motion fails. Therefore, the motion on the floor is the original amount of $117,850. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the appropriation for town building operating expenses, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. The ayes have it. The next hold is on line 30, veterans. Mr. Archibald.
Madam Moderator, I would request that under the veterans line item, other assessments, veteran services, that the initial amount requested was $10,000, and with the addition of some new information and a veteran that recently moved into town, that we need to increase that amount. I have Mr. Jennings give the exact number.
Mr. Jennings cannot make the motion, so.
I have to know what the number is.
Okay, just get the number and then you have to make the motion to amend.
I would make a motion.
No, identify yourself.
Dave Archibald, Selectman. I would recommend that we increase that line item to $24,000.
Northern Essex Veteran Services? Is it the line for Northern?
No, it's other assessments.
Other assessments, and what was the amount?
$24,000.
24,000? Okay, the motion on the floor is to amend the amount from $10,000 to $24,000. Is there
May I speak?
Mr. Roberts?
Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee met on this matter this morning, and it was unanimous in its support of this expenditure. Thank you.
Ms. Solis?
I'm just a little confused. Can you explain how come this one can go up and the other one couldn't?
In the line item budget, the amounts can be raised or lowered.
But this last one, you voted on it and it voted down, so it could have gone up.
It could have gone up.
Got it. Thanks.
The line item budget is the only place in town meeting where the amount can be increased. Is there any further discussion? Please go to the microphone.
Andre Ruzicki, Hanover Lane. Can you explain what the use of proceeds would be for a very nebulous other expense allocation line?
Can you answer the question?
Yeah, I have my memo.
Mr. Jennings?
Yep. So the, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 115, the town is obligated to pay certain veterans benefits to eligible veterans. That budget line's been pretty steady for a number of years. There's just a single beneficiary who lives in town. In May, the first or second week of May, we got another assessment. There's a new person who moved to town who's eligible for benefits at just short of $1,400 a month. So that is something we're legally obligated to pay. So the initial recommended amount of $10,000 carried a buffer from our known expenses for FY21, which was about $4,800, with this additional benefit amount, which, assuming this person lives here the entire 12 months, we would be obligated to, brings the total known benefit amount to $21,492 for FY21. We're recommending $24,000 so that there's still a little bit of contingency in there in the event a new veteran either moves to town or becomes eligible for benefits.
The reimbursement too.
Oh, yeah, Archie makes a really good point. So, really good point. We are reimbursed 75% of this money. So every dollar we pay out, we get 75 cents back. The only issue is that we don't get it for about 18 months after because of the time delay.
Any further discussion? The motion is to amend the amount from $10,000 to $24,000. All those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. Motion passes unanimously. The next hold is on library. I can't hear you. Please come to the microphone. I can't hear you.
You need to vote the whole amount. You just voted a motion to amend.
Oh, thank you. That was a good point of order. Hold on for just a minute. I have to take another vote. Now the motion on the floor under veterans, other assessments, veteran services, is to appropriate $24,000. All those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. Motion passes unanimously. And now we have library.
Madam Moderator, David Archibald, Selectman.
Mr. Archibald, I have warring.
I didn't see her, I'm sorry.
Is that on?
I'm not sure. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Wendy Reed, Chair of the Board of Library Trustees. I just wanted to make a comment on this budget item on behalf of the trustees and our library director. When we submitted our budget back in January, we had included an additional 10-hour per week position at the staff level. And the reason for this was with the increase in programming and attendance at the library over the past year, we'd found that the current staffing levels were not adequate to safely support the programming and provide library services. Subsequent to that, of course, the pandemic forced us to cut back on programming, then cancel it, and finally to close the library. And we've only just recently resumed offering curbside pickup at the library. So given the uncertainty of what operations will look like over the next fiscal year, the board voted to hold off on seeking funding for this additional position. And what you have before you reflects current staff levels. But we just wanted to take this opportunity to make you aware that when things do return to normal, we will need additional staff in order to continue to provide the same level of programming and library services for the community. Thank you.
Did you want to speak or she? Is there any further discussion? If not, the motion on the floor is to appropriate $258,326 for salary and wages All those in favor, please raise your cards. All those opposed, please raise your cards. Motion passes unanimously. And that concludes the holds on the line item budget. I will entertain a motion to accept the Finance Committee's recommendations as amended.
Madam Moderator, I move that the amounts of money set forth in the printed report of the Finance Committee be appropriated for the several purposes therein itemized, each numbered item being considered as a separate appropriation, and that the same be expended only for such purposes.
I have to offer you a friendly amendment because,
Except the change.
except for the,
Except the change.
as amended.
Of course.
Okay, so it was accepted as a friendly amendment to accept the Finance Committee's recommendations except for the amendments. All those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. Motion passes unanimously. At this point, I will recess the annual town meeting and take up the first special town meeting, the first special town meeting. Which is being held pursuant to a warrant given by the Selectmen on the 20th day of April, 2020. Once again, we will dispense with Article 1. There will be no reports. Article 2. To see if the town will vote to transfer from Community Preservation Act funds the sum of $462,857 from the undesignated fund balance to support reconstruction of and accessibility improvements to the Page School playground in conformity with the application submitted, or to take any action relative thereto. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, the Finance Committee was split 3-3 on this issue.
Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, I move to transfer from Community Preservation Act funds the sum of $462,857 from the CPC undesignated fund balance for all costs and expenses relating to the reconstruction of and accessibility improvements to the Page School playground in conformity with the application filed with and approved by the Community Preservation Committee. Any remaining funds will be closed out to the Community Preservation Act funds unrestricted fund balance at the close of fiscal year 2023.
Discussion. If you wish to discuss, the microphones are at the front here, or there's one there for the people on this side.
If I have a question.
Yes, you may ask the question.
Okay, thank you. Certainly our playground should be suitable for all children. I'm wondering though, in light of the pandemic, the uncertainness of the school opening, the pandemic that has hit people financially in different ways, whether this large amount of money should be expended at this point in time, and whether this is one of those articles where no action is a better vote until we have better information in the fall town meeting about what's happening. I know we are spending some other money from other articles on the Page School later on, fire alarm and safety, and I'm just wondering whether I wanted to introduce the possibility of voting no action. Thank you. Jean Lambert.
Mrs. Lambert, that actually is a statement
Okay.
rather than a question. There's no answer to that question.
Well,
That's,
I guess it's could we do that under this article if people
the motion
felt-
on the floor right now is to make the appropriation.
Okay.
And so a motion of no action at this point is not in order.
Okay, sorry.
So
I
you just
was
want to vote
confused.
against this if you're opposed to it.
Thank you. I was confused about how to raise the possibility of
Yeah.
no action.
Okay, next. Please remember that There is a 2-minute time limit on comments.
Hi, Tricia Sabulis, resident, just here in my support of the playground. Currently, the playground is not ADA accessible, but mainly all kids really can't use the playground. It's underwater, it has drainage issues, and many of the structures are broken and cannot be fixed because the structures were discontinued a couple years ago. So this playground really is for all kids. Our children need a place to play during the school year. And I know she brought up that, you know, it's during the pandemic and we're not really sure what the future holds for children, but I think it's a great time for the playground, especially since our plan is to get more bids for the playground, and they may come in more competitive due to the pandemic, and also it will leave a little bit more time to build that playground and have it ready for the kids in the fall. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ashley Davis. I'm a resident in town. I don't have much different to add than what Mrs. Sabulis said, but I am a parent of a current 6th grader who graduated from Page, and she spent almost the entirety of her elementary school time unable to play at recess on a structure because it was closed for poor drainage, insufficient facilities, and so I think it's really important that our children have the ability to have recess. It's important to their education, and we should really think about providing them that. That's all. Thank you.
Recognize the lady on the right, on my right.
Alice Shattuck, resident. I have kids at the Page School. I'm going to have kids at the Page School for the next 10 years. I approve of having a playground, but I don't approve of funding it this way. This is an enormous expenditure out of the CPA funds. The biggest one, at least since I've been going to town meeting, the expenditure for the Soldiers and Sailors meeting, which overall was larger, was not being appropriated all at once. It was done as a bonding, so we only pay for the debt service as we go along with it. This, to me, seems like an unwise use of a huge amount of CPA funds at one time, when we need the money in order to prevent projects like the Coffin Street project by using this money for what it's meant for, which is to preserve the green spaces and do affordable housing. I want to tell the people that support this that I really want this playground built, and I think there should be an effort to raise at least some of the money privately and to pursue grants to do parts of it. If you look at the proposal to use CPA money for the green space that's coming up later on this meeting, the funding comes from a variety of sources so that the whole burden doesn't fall on the taxpayers in one huge expenditure. And if we use the CPA money this way, I'm just afraid that there are a lot more Coffin Street projects in our future.
Thank you.
Hello, I am Christy Arredondo. I'm a resident in town. And I was horrified when I first took a tour of the playground at the Page. And I went home and I asked my son what he does for recess. And he said, Mom, if we're really lucky, we get to spend time in a 4x4 dirt patch and we get to kick dirt on each other. And that has stuck with me through all of our meetings and all of our discussions about what we need to do. So the bottom line for me is kids deserve much better than a dirt patch. Thank you.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak against this?
Cindy Bokar. I am a nature educator. I've worked with Audubon for years, both here and in Seattle. And I think this price is exorbitant and ridiculous. The trend now is for nature-based playgrounds which encourage the children to use their imaginations and to use natural materials in their play and to be creative. Obviously, we need a healthy, compliant playground for the children. But this amount of money, and I have worked on committees that have built playgrounds in the past, is absurd. We should defer this until we know more what's going to happen. And we keep putting money into Page School, but it isn't gonna last forever. Let's think about it.
Hi, I'm Nicole Francoeur. I'm a resident in town on Meadowsweet Road. I wanted to just note that the CPA has approved this, and that does not affect taxes, anything that comes out of that fund, and that this is the equivalent to 1 year's of revenue for the CPA. So we're not talking about depleting their funds completely. It would be a 1 year project for that. So I wanted to show my support for the playground. Thank you.
Are you in line? Yes.
Joel Butler of Main Street. I've lived in town for 40 years. Many times over the years, I've voted for projects to support the schools and the children. I just think this is really bad timing. We just undertook building a new high school, and with the costs associated with that. Also, the development in town is exploding at an alarming rate. I think we need to preserve some of our funds so that when opportunities come up to preserve open space, that we have the money to do it. This is a lot of money. It's almost $500,000. That beautiful playground over there was built primarily with residents donating time and money to the project. The Janelle family worked for years to raise the money, plan, and organize. Most of us donated a week's vacation to help build it. Tradesmen in town donated their expertise and materials. And what we have is a pretty wonderful thing. Now we're talking about a group coming and asking for almost $500,000 to build something brand new. How about we consider some fundraising and planning and not rush so fast into this? I, for one, would like to see our money go more towards open space that everybody can enjoy. Thank you.
Janice Parrott, resident here. I stand in support of the playground. It can be a space for everyone to enjoy, everyone in town when school is not in session. So it is for everybody, and it is ADA approved. It's a fantastic thing. It can't be done with bits and pieces. It needs to be done all together in order for it to be ADA compliant, and in order for the ground underneath to be engineered appropriately so that flooding does not occur like it currently does. And I have 3 kids at Page that have indoor recess because the playground is insufficient. And the space is large and beautiful and wonderful for people to explore and enjoy and use natural things to play with as well. I'm completely in support of nature. My kids play in the woods all of the time, but I think that it's also very important to provide a playground for kids that are physically incapable of finding those things on their own, and they can still enjoy what the rest of our kids enjoy. Thank you.
I will note that there have been very few people opposed, so I will recognize the rest of you, but I ask no more people to come to the pro side until someone else comes to the anti side.
Madam Moderator?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Drury.
Forbes Dury, Finance Committee, just a point of information for all those voting. The $462,857, which is being requested in this article, is roughly 1/3 of the total CPC undesignated fund balance, which stands at $1.4 million at this point. So the monies that we are requesting are 1/3 of that total fund balance.
Are you pro or? You've been staying there long. No, okay, so, okay, I'll recognize, okay.
Hi, I'm Belle Hornblower, Meeting House Hill Road resident. And I believe as a community, we should always be moving in the direction of more inclusivity And by voting yes for a new playground, we are moving a step in the right direction. Thank you.
I'll take a few more. I had cut off the speakers after the lady here with the black top. Unless there are more negative speakers, I think we have heard overwhelmingly from the positive side. I reckon. Neutral, you can go to either microphone you want. Okay, I think you are next, and then okay.
Hi, yes, Amy Wilson. I'm the physical education teacher at the Page School. I'm the director of the summer recreational program here in West Newbury. I have 3 sons that are in and going through the Page School. For the school year, we are there for 10 months, and to see the children not be able to play on the structure for 4 months as a physical education teacher is almost heartbreaking for me. Knowing too that if it does pass, we will be doing fundraising as well to help with the building of the structure for all students and all children to be able to access. Thank you.
Hi, Dirk Peterson, resident Georgetown Road. While I understand that the playground needs to be fixed up, what I would really support is tackling the major problem I've heard everybody talking about, which is the drainage. To look at a much smaller project, tackle the drainage problem so you've got a field where people can work, and then look at providing some of the fundraising and maybe volunteer work to install the playground and get some of the equipment they want there. At this point in time, taking out a third of the budget in a time when we really don't know what's going to be going on as far as income coming into the town, I think this is a little bit of a large project to tackle right now.
Mr. Kemper.
I want to make a couple of points, especially where people are making some points. This is not a rush to judgment. I am for this, by the way. This is not a rush to judgment. I think this group, or fragments of this group, had come before the Board of Selectmen, Park and Rec, back last August. All public meetings, we posted them, wanted to get some input. So this is not I just want to make sure this is not what people think that it's a rush to judgment. This has been a long process, which started last August. Again, this is coming out of CPA funds. This has nothing to do with the operating budget. We cannot use any of this money in these tough times to operate the town in our line item budget. I'm not going to give you the sense, but we have our balance in this CPA funds, we have $1.8 million. If everything passes today, we're going to have $1.6 million. And so somebody's going to say, well, how could that be? Because there's only one article is $400,000. That does include the revenue that this does include the revenue that we're getting this year. So that's why there's only $200,000 discrepancy. So we're not depleting this fund. It's been sitting probably at $1.5 million for years. And there is plenty of money in there for open space, for all the other things, for affordable housing, everything else that those funds were allocated for. So I would ask you to support this. If you've started in the beginning in August, piecemealing this together is not the way to go. I think it will cost us more money in the end to start to fix the drainage than to get the ADA compliant and stuff like this. I think it's smart. It's a lot of money, I understand that. But when people say when we built Action Cove or we worked on things in the past, we have to understand that there's prevailing wage, things cost more money, and actually this is the time to do it with this pandemic because the school might not be fully operational in the fall, and it will actually cost us less money to do something when we don't have kids running around, and the safety, and to have to only work on off hours. So it's actually, that's a positive. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Brooke Lear. I'm a parent and a resident. I live on Crescent Drive. I wear two hats, and I'm going to try to make this brief, but my first hat as a parent with 3 children, my second grader tells me all the time they never play on the playground, and there's numerous injuries, so things have been banded off that they can't use. And I think it's important. I know we worry about the timing, but these kids, kindergartners through 6th graders, this is the time they need these types of equipment and structures. They're gonna get big quick, and they're gonna go through their elementary school years without a proper playground. My other hat is a pediatric occupational therapist in the community, and I find it absolutely wretchedly abysmal that that playground is not accessible to all children. It's really inappropriate. ADA compliance requires some heavy-duty funding up front to do it right, but we should have a community playground and a school playground that all children can use, and right now it can't be done. And I know the committee has done a lot of background work into the pricing. There will be fundraising, but I think if we tried to piecemeal this together with some building happening, the safety issue would not, the safety would be an issue. Thank you.
Next, lady.
Jennifer Reardon, Main Street. I have 2 boys at the Page. We're actually brand new to town. We've only been here for a few years. I never really understood why they would get off the bus and say, "Mommy, can you pick us up before recess?" And I'm like, why? That's supposed to be the most fun time of your day at school. And with prodding and weeks going by, I found out that there's caution tape wrapped around it. It's extremely dangerous, which is not okay. As a parent, when you send them to a school, you want to know that they're going to be safe. And the Page School playground is extremely unsafe several months out of the year. So as for timing, I think the timing is absolutely appropriate. It would have construction being done when the school isn't operational at 100%, so it would be a lot safer for the children. And it is coming out of the community preservation funds, and the children are part of our community. They're the future of the community. And yes, it should be absolutely accessible to all children with all abilities, and all abilities should be allowed to play with all of the students. That's how they will grow together and learn to love one another. Thank you.
I had asked no one else to come up to the microphone after that lady. Do any of you have anything new to offer on this topic? If you'll have to wait your turn if they still want to speak. Now, unless you have something really new to offer on this, please follow my guidance. We have had very few speakers against. We've had quite a few speakers for, and we need to get this meeting concluded before the rain comes. So please be brief.
Vin Brianzi, resident. How much money have we spent so far on the Page School to get it where it is? That's the first question.
I'm going to rule that question out of order. I don't think anyone's prepared to answer that question today.
Okay, well, I'm in favor of this. I think it's great to have kids come out and play in the open, especially when there's a pandemic. You need to get outside. You can't really coop them in. They need to get out there and use that time for energy and to have physical activity. My only concern is moving forward. I'd like to know how much we are spending, because we continually spend more and more and more in the Page School. When originally I thought it was a good idea to build a new one, get 50% funding from the state, and then these problems wouldn't have occurred. So at some point, would somebody let us know how much money's been spent, so moving forward we have an idea of what's going on. That's all.
Mr. Jennings.
Angus Jennings, Town Manager. Just very briefly, I want to say that the capital planning process, advanced in leaps and bounds in the last year. We have some very, very detailed capital plans for the Page School and for all of the town facilities and equipment. So that's something, we'll post that to the Capital Committee website, but it's really got a tremendous amount of detail. Everything that is on our radar in terms of needs is cost estimates, backup. So in the next week, if you take a look at the Capital Committee webpage, I think people will be real pleased with the level of planning that's been going on.
Mrs. Lambert.
Jean Lambert, River Road. I would ask, it seems that majority of us are in favor of a playground, in favor of a playground for all children. However, hearing the comments here today, it seems to me that a better plan would be to vote this current article down, but with the idea of coming back at fall town meeting, which is only a few months away now, with a better plan that involves not only the CPA money, but fundraising, grants for playgrounds. I'm sure there are those out there, and we have expertise in this town that could help find those. In other words, a blended kind of solution that we've used for other approaches, other things we've needed in town, that would end up with the result we all want, which is a good playground, but which would also minimize the impact to the town's monies. Even though they're CPA monies, they might be needed for other things. And to do such a large expenditure here, when it could be handled through a blended solution of fundraising, grants, and CPA money, would be preferable. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tim McCain on Indian Hill Street. Not to overstate this, it's quite obvious that playground's a disaster. My daughter just finished 6th grade, had to deal with that for all 6 years, and my son. So I don't really have any skin in the game as far as kids go in there anymore. But my daughter shattered her wrist in 5th grade, ruined her whole year, missed soccer, couldn't even do indoor recess because she slipped off one of the monkey bars and the ground was frozen because of the water. And yeah, let's get it done. Thanks.
Okay. The motion on the floor is to appropriate or transfer from Community Preservation Act funds the sum of $462,857 from the undesignated fund balance to support construction of the playground. Improvements and repairs to the Council on Aging Facility Public Safety Complex, old DPW garage on the Page School site, and the 1910 building, and for any unforeseen emergency repairs to town facilities. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam
Mr. Roberts.
Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee was split 3-3 on this article.
Madam Moderator, I move.
Say your name.
Madam Moderator, I move to transfer from free cash the sum of $49,150 to pay expenses pertaining to the improvements and repairs to the Council on Aging Facility, Public Safety Complex, old DPW garage on the Page School site, the 1910 building, and to pay for any unforeseen emergency repairs to town properties. Any remaining funds will be closed out to the undesignated fund balance at the close of fiscal year 2023.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. The ayes have it. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $61,087 to fund the fiscal year 2020 snow and ice deficit. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee was split 3-3 on this article.
Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, I move to transfer from free cash the sum of $61,087 to fund the snow and ice deficit. Any remaining funds will be closed out to the undesignated fund balance at the close of fiscal year 2021.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if all those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. The ayes have it. Article 5, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $3,800 to pay for salaries and expenses pertaining to the operation of early voting for the 2020 state primary election and November presidential election, with any sums remaining by the end of the fiscal year 2021 to be returned to the town. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee was unanimous in its support of this article.
Madam
Mr. Parker.
Moderator, I move to transfer from free cash the sum of $3,800 to pay for salaries and expenses pertaining to the operation of early voting for the 2020 state primary election and November presidential election. Any remaining funds will be closed out to the undesignated fund balance at the close of fiscal year 2021.
Is there any discussion? Second. Nope. It's been seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. The ayes have it. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $14,000 to install picnic tables and benches at the Mill Pond Dock area. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee is unanimous in its opposition of this article.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town take no action on this article.
It's been moved to take no action. The only vote is on taking no action. If you wish to discuss this article, you would vote no on no action. All those in favor of taking no action, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. The ayes have it. We will be taking no action. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $8,048 for the town's share of expenses for the grant-supported installation of electric vehicle charging stations at Page School and the 1910 building. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee, with 2 in favor and 3 opposed, did not support this article.
Madam Moderator, I move to transfer from free cash the sum of $8,048 for the town's share of expenses for the grant-supported installation of electric vehicle charging station at the Page School and the 1910 building. Any remaining funds will be closed out to the undesignated fund balance at the close of fiscal year 2021.
Discussion.
Second.
Yes, Madam Moderator.
Mr. Parker.
Sorry, I thought that'd be somebody else. So there's a significant utility incentive provided for this particular proposed project. Essentially, the utility incentives will cover 92% of the cost. The combined cost of installing the charging stations at the 2 locations. By the way, there would be 4 charging points at each location. The total comes out to over $90,000. And given utility incentives, obviously the utility is anxious to see the build out of the charging network in anticipation of the growth of the electrical vehicle charging or electrical vehicle market. The incentives total about 92% of the overall cost to do this. We're never going to get a better deal than this if we're going to put in charging stations. You see them at many other municipal locations in other municipalities now. You see them at businesses, and they are what is coming in the future. The electrical vehicle market is the largest growing segment from a percentage standpoint, has the highest growth rate of any segment of the automotive market right now. 10 years from now, there's a pretty high probability that most of us here are going to be driving electric vehicles. And we're just never going to see a deal like this come along again.
Mr. Baker.
Mr. Parker, would you allow a friendly amendment to this to make this revenue neutral for the town, that the town adds fees to your proposal such that there is no cost to the taxpayers overall? I don't have that worded properly. But.
Okay, here's the deal. A friendly amendment is one which makes a correction either in language, spelling, grammar, date, something that's a clear mistake that the mover recognizes immediately and says, oh yes, that's a friendly amendment, we will change that. Any other recommendation to amend is just an amendment. You can still make it, but it's not a friendly amendment. So you're asking to amend the motion on the floor to include.
I move that we amend the motion to make, to add fees to anyone using these charging stations such that there is no cost to the town for this entire project.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to include that language as an amendment. And so the discussion is on that motion to amend. Discussion. Oh, is there a second? Point of order, yes. There was no second. Is there a second? There was a second over there? Okay, there is a second. Discussion.
Madam Moderator? So
Mr. Parker.
As thought right now, because we have no history and we don't know the usage rate, we have no way of understanding what would be appropriate to charge to cover the costs of the system installation. The intention is to cover the actual energy cost through a fee that's done through the charging stations. So people would not be charging for free, they would be paying for the energy costs, but not paying for the infrastructure itself. And if we had some idea of usage, then we might be able to come up with a reasonable number that didn't make this unattractive for somebody to actually use. But we don't have that history. In any event, if you think about it, the town provides benefits to a lot of other people, to all of us, in fact, in the form of things like playing fields and library and all the other amenities that go along with town. Over time, this will be another amenity to most of the people in town. And I personally don't think at this time that it makes sense to try to play with the numbers to come up with some wild guess as to what would be an appropriate fee to pay to cover the cost of the facility. The cost of the facility, because of the heavy rate that it's being incentivized by the utility, is already a small fraction, only 8% of what it would actually cost if we were to be installing this on our own.
Is there any further discussion on the proposed amendment? If not, all those in favor of the proposed amendment, please raise your green card. All those opposed to the proposed amendment, please raise your red card. The amendment to add a surcharge to add a charge to make the cost of the charging station revenue neutral to the town. Okay, the motion to amend fails. The motion on the floor is to appropriate $8,048 for the town share of expenses for the grant-supported installation of electrical vehicle charging stations at Page School and the 1910 building. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. The ayes have it. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $16,443 to fund the Essex Agricultural and Technical High School fiscal year 20 budget deficit. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee was unanimous in its support of this article.
Mr.
Madam
Parker.
Moderator, I move to transfer from free cash the sum of $16,443 to pay all expenses pertaining to the Essex Agricultural and Technical High School FY20 budget deficit.
Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. The motion passes unanimously. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $20,247.44 to fund underbilled but incurred National Grid expenses related to the public safety complex. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee was unanimous in its support of this article.
Mr. Parker?
Madam Moderator, I move to transfer from free cash the sum of $20,247.47 to pay all expenses pertaining to the underbilled but incurred National Grid charges related to the public safety complex.
Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. The motion passes unanimously, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn the special town meeting.
I move we adjourn the special town meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The special town meeting is adjourned, and we will return to the annual town meeting. We will pick up the annual town meeting with Article 4. In accordance with the provisions of Chapter 38 of the Acts of 1936, to see what instructions, rules, and regulations the town may wish to impose on the Board of Water Commissioners. Does anyone wish to impose any instructions, rules, and regulations on the Board of Water Commissioners? I didn't think so. Moving on to Article 5. To see if the town will vote to appropriate in anticipation of Water Department revenue the sum of $861,446, of which $205,579 for salary and wages, which include $1,700 for water commissioner stipends, $27,141 for insurances, $379,896 for expenses, $176,920 for debt service, $20,000 for extraordinary and unforeseen expenses, and $51,910 for indirect costs. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee was unanimous in support of this article.
Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, I move to appropriate, in anticipation of Water Department revenue, the sum of $861,446, of which $205,579 for salaries and wages, which includes $1,700 for water commissioner stipends, $27,141 for insurances, $379,896 for expenses, $176,920 for debt service, $20,000 for extraordinary and unforeseen circumstances, and $51,910 for indirect cost.
Is there any discussion?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your green cards. Are you raising that? Nope. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. Motion passes unanimously. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $68,750 for the Pension Liability Stabilization Fund, or take any action related thereto. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee was unanimous in its support of this article.
Madam Moderator.
Mr. Parker.
My apologies, sorry. Madam Moderator, I move that the town take no action on this article.
Been moved to take no action. Once again, if you wish to discuss this article, you would want to vote no on the motion to take no action. All those in favor of taking no action, please raise your green card. All those opposed to taking no action, please raise your red card. Motion passes unanimously to take no action. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $5,000 for other post-employment benefits, OPEB, stabilization fund, or take any action related thereto. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee was unanimous in support of this article.
Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town take no action on this article.
Same thing. If you want to discuss it, you'll wish to vote no on no action. All those in favor of taking no action on this article, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. The ayes have it. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $328,600 to be placed in the General Purpose Municipal Stabilization Fund, established pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B, the School Stabilization Fund, in order to fund capital expenditures for school-related building projects or to take any other action related thereto. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee is unanimous in its support of this article.
Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $328,600 to be placed in the Special Purpose Municipal Stabilization Fund established pursuant to MGL Chapter 40, Section 5B, the School Stabilization Fund, in order to fund capital expenditures for school-related building projects.
Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. Motion passes unanimously. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $652,340 from the School Stabilization Fund to offset the property tax impact of a Proposition 2.5 override and pay the town's share of debt service associated with the building of the new middle high school. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee was unanimous in its opposition of this new change total.
Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, I move to transfer the sum of $652,340 from the School Stabilization Fund to pay the debt service associated with the building of the new middle/high school for the Pentucket Regional School District.
Discussion.
Madam Moderator.
Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The intent of the Board of Selectmen is absolutely and totally pure in this article. I will say that if you believe that we will recover, or the economy will recover from the current situation within the next year or 18 months, or you're planning on moving out of town, that this would be a wonderful thing to vote yes on. But if, like me and the Chairman of the Federal Reserve, you believe that it may take longer for the economy to recover, we may in fact need this money more in 2 or 3 years than we actually need it now. We had initially voted in favor of an amount that was $247,000 to do this, to have this operate in its intended original purpose. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Archibald.
Dave Archibald, Selectman. Initially, the plan, as Mr. Roberts has discussed, was to use approximately half of the money that's been put away into this account. However, this money we have been putting this money away for 4, 5, 6 years. I can't remember the exact amount. So we're not draining down the whole amount. And the people that paid into that amount 4 or 5 years ago, which you have been doing, this may be the worst year that we're having economically since the Great Depression. Our feeling was, we have this money that we've been saving to on purpose, so that we were being conscientious, so that we wouldn't have a huge hit to the taxpayers. Well, this year, if there's 30% unemployment in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it seems to me like this is a year that we could really that the taxpayers may really need that money.
Mr. Drury.
Madam Moderator, a statement, and then I'd like to make a motion, please. The school stabilization account is essentially the school's savings account. And I don't know how many of you out there would go to your own personal savings account in the middle of this sort of economic environment and say, hey, let's double the amount that we're going to take out and spend it today, when we know that there's going to be tough times ahead in the future. That being said, Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion to amend the amount that is being requested in this article back to the $247,647, which was the original intended amount of the withdrawal from this article.
Second. I need to ask town council. This is a 2/3 vote, just the amendment, right?
No, the amendment request.
Motion on the floor is the motion to amend the amount down, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, to $247,647.
Second.
Okay. The discussion now is on the motion to amend. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the amendment, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red
The
cards.
other's going to fail, I think.
Motion to amend passes. The motion on the floor is to transfer $247,647 from the school stabilization fund to offset the property tax. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to make
Yeah.
I hope everyone is getting this right. You have saved money, and you're now going to be, your taxes, the impact of the school building project on your taxes this year will be significantly higher by voting for the amendment. Your taxes are going up.
Mr. Drury.
Ladies and gentlemen, we voted last year for a $150 million new school. Who doesn't know that their taxes is going to go up as a result of that? The point is that we had a long-term savings plan to accumulate those funds and offset the tax impact over time. The effect of the measure that's being put forward today is to take a lot of those savings and jam it forward right now so that there's no tax impact. We know there's going to be a tax impact. You can't afford to go ahead and use all those funds today.
Further discussion?
Madam Moderator, I voted.
Mr. Parker.
I voted in favor of the amendment. I'd ask to reconsider, please. I believe
A motion
I
to
can do that.
reconsider is out of order until sufficient time has passed, so that there is can you state your reason for now this, you're not asking to change your vote, you're asking for everyone to reconsider. Correct. Can you state why you think that there is sufficient change of heart that the entire vote, that all of the voters should reconsider the original motion?
Yes, because I believe what we just heard was reference to the tax increase that is going to result, that will be a result of this change. And I would like people to have a chance to digest that thought before they cast their final vote on the article.
I would suggest that you just go ahead and make a statement to that effect, there can always be another motion to amend, but reconsideration at this point is out of order because we haven't even voted on the original motion. I don't want to confuse anybody. A motion to reconsider is a very delicate motion. It means that the town has already voted on something, and then new information has come up, or something was misunderstood. But there's a compelling reason to think that people will change their minds. That that the original motion that passed would be changed by reconsidering it. It's a very difficult motion for a moderator to handle because it could go on forever, and it also indicates that if people have left or whatever, their vote wouldn't have counted. So this motion is really not in order at this time. We could reconsider the entire article. If we vote, we could reconsider the entire article at the end of the meeting if there is sufficient interest in reconsideration. But that requires a vote from all of you. If all of you said you want to reconsider that article at the end of the meeting, then that is an appropriate motion. However, it has to be done before the close of this annual town meeting. So you have that option if you really want to reconsider to bring it up again later in the meeting. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Are you looking to discuss? Yes.
Dirk Peterson, Georgetown Road. I guess I would just ask for additional information from the Finance Committee on either the original amount or the amended amount, the reasons for holding it back now, what they anticipate potentially needing it for in the future might make it easier for us to make a decision on either of the two amounts.
The gentleman would like a little bit of clarification about the difference between the two amounts.
I guess the point at hand is that one of the best things that this community has done over the past 10 years is the establishment of this account to sort of plan ahead for the fact that they were going to have to replace a school. And when it was conceived, it was done with the notion that no matter what the cost, the amount that we put in this would offset the expense on your taxes, so the impact would be felt at a lesser extent. And again, like I stated earlier, I believe the intent of the Board of Selectmen was pure in doing this. We just have a difference of opinion in terms of how the recovery of this situation is going to happen and how fast it's going to happen. So, I think it just depends on where your head's at. If you think we're going to be back out of the woods financially and the economy will return within a shorter amount of time, then voting for the amount that they suggested would be the appropriate thing to do. I don't share that feeling.
Okay, let me just take this one.
Kevin Bowe, Maple Street. I would echo that. It seems like we all have the decision of what is the best plan moving ahead with a lot of uncertainty. So I was wondering if someone could answer the question in average dollar amount that either of these numbers will impact our taxes, our tax rate, at least in the first year. So if we had a $247,000 figure, how would that impact our tax rate for the next year? Or if we went with the $600,000, how would that impact the average homeowner's tax rate?
Mr. Jennings.
Thank you. Angus Jennings, Town Manager. So I just want to say a couple of words about how both numbers were derived, which I believe is at least partially responsive to Mr. Bowe's question. So the initial amount that was proposed, the 247, we always knew that FY21 is the first year that there is a financial impact from the middle high school. Roughly half of the borrowing has taken place. So the amount that we're responsible for in next fiscal year is roughly half the total debt service that we'll be paying for the next couple of decades. That roughly half amount is the $652,340. So that's the debt service that's part of our Pentucket assessment for next year. In FY22, the assessment's going to be about twice that much. So with the proposal the selectmen have made to draw 652,340 in FY21, that would mean that the taxpayer would have no impact from that borrowing next year. With the reduced amount, every dollar that's not coming out of the stabilization fund is going to come out of your tax bill. So I can't do the math right now on what that actual tax rate impact would be, but you're talking about $400,000, so it's significant. Another point that I want to make is that in the prior article, the voters just voted to put into stabilization $328,600 for next year, the school stabilization. So to draw out less than that, you would actually be continuing to build your savings in that account next year.
Further discussion? Okay, now
Yeah,
the motion.
Madam Moderator, I do have one addition. So, as in discussion with the Board of Selectmen, we had expected that this school stabilization fund would essentially be paid out over the course of 6 years, and at the end of 6 years would be effectively zeroed out. So, certainly this will decrease the amount of remaining funds in the school stabilization account if we go for the original number. But it isn't as though it's going to all be gone in 2 years. Clearly, it's going to take some time for our economy to recover. None of us are seers. None of us absolutely know how things are going to play out. And so the intent by the Board of Selectmen was to at least try to ease things this year, which we know for certain is going to be a bad year.
Is there any further discussion? Now, just to be clear, the motion to amend the amount to $247,647 passed. So therefore, the amount that we're voting on right now is not $652,340. It is $247,647. Is everyone clear on that? Okay. This motion required. Oh.
If you look at the numbers, one gentleman said there's $150 million for the schools. There's 3 towns supporting it, Groveland, Merrimack, West Newbury, $25 million apiece. The extra $400,000 on a long-term note makes very little, insignificant amounts to your taxes. So if you understand a little bit about finance, it's a no-brainer. So I say, I'm going along with Mr. Archibald. The finance man had some good points, but it won't add that much on your $25 million loan to support the school.
He's completely screwed.
Angus, can you straighten Mr. Kemper. Everybody be careful.
Yeah, I just want to try to make this simple. Back 2 or 3 months ago, well, 2 months ago, we saw the tough times that everybody was having with, Archie said, 30% unemployment. I'm not sure how those figures play out in West Newbury. But we were trying to be cognizant and of the environment and the fiscal environment that's happening, and said, hey, listen, this is the first year that you're going to feel an impact in your taxes for the construction of our new middle high school. So we said, we do have this fund we've been saving for. We just put $328,000 into that fund around 10 minutes ago. All we wanted to do was say, hey, listen, let's have the impact negative neutral to our taxpayers, because it's a tough year. We don't have a crystal ball. It could be tough. That's it. So it's up to you. Do you want to have $400,000 more that we all have to pay in taxes this year, spread over obviously all of our households, or not? We were just trying to think and be sensitive to the economic happenings of this year. That's it. That's all. It's not rocket science. So if you want to increase your taxes, vote for this article. If you don't, vote for the article. Vote it down, and the $600 and something thousand that we've already saved won't raise your taxes. That's it.
We could do that, but we need to put it on the warrant.
Does anyone else wish to address this question? So the number we're voting on is $247,647. This motion is to take money from a stabilization account, and it requires a 2/3 vote. So I'm going to ask all those who are opposed to this to please raise your red card. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your green card. Okay, I'm going to have to count it because it is a 2/3 vote. So will the tellers do the same thing as you did last time? So everybody put down your cards right now. We'll start over. It's going to be a counted vote.
Casey, could you restate what we're doing, just to make sure it's clear to everybody what we're doing right now? I do think it's got a little confused.
Okay. In the interest of making sure everyone's completely clear about this, okay?
Casey, will you explain that if this fails, then there is no taxpayer benefit?
Right.
Then you should probably
Okay.
Zero.
Okay. I've been asked to make some clarifying remarks, and I will. The purpose of this article is to mitigate the effect of the debt service for the high school, middle school construction project by using money from our stabilization fund, which we've been contributing to for years, to offset some of the cost that would go on to your tax rate. The difference of opinion between the selectmen and the finance department was one of magnitude, not of whether this was a good idea. They both think that using some of the stabilization fund to offset the tax increases is a good idea. The Finance Committee suggested a lower number because they're not sure that this year is going to be the worst of the economic crisis, and having no crystal ball, they didn't want to put too much into it at this point without knowing where we're going from here. The selectmen said that this has been a terrible year. All of us are suffering financial losses, and it would be better to put a larger amount from the stabilization fund in this year because it's been such a dreadful year for everyone. No one has recommended that we don't do this at all. The whole premise that we had last year when we had the vote on the school was that since we have been good custodians of our finances and have regularly put money into the stabilization fund, we can now reap the benefit of that by using some of that money to offset the increases to our tax rate that would result from the debt service for the loans for the schools. So both groups, the Finance Committee and the Selectmen, are in favor of some, the difference being the amount. The original motion had the higher amount proposed by the Selectmen. You voted to lower that amount to $247,647. That is the motion on the floor. If you vote no, or if the 2/3 vote fails on this motion, there will be no offset to the debt service from the stabilization fund. All of the impact of the debt service will go on your tax rate. Does everyone understand?
Point of order?
Yes.
But we could revisit it at the end.
I will entertain a motion to reconsider at the end of this meeting since there was some confusion. Someone has to remember to make that motion and to holler at me. Okay, but that, at the end of this meeting, that would be a valid motion. All right, 2/3 vote. Same situation as last time. Yes, the people with the, thank you for the red and green chairs. That makes life easier. The motion passes 272 to 18. The form of the motion at the end of the meeting is, I move to reconsider the vote taken under Article 9. Okay. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $21,965.20 from the septic loan revolving account for the repayment of debt service. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee was unanimous in its support of Article 10.
Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, I move to transfer the sum of $21,965.20 from the septic loan revolving account for the repayment of debt service.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. Motion passes unanimously. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $300,000 into the Capital Stabilization Fund or take any other action related thereto. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee voted to take no action with a vote of 5 in favor, 1 opposed.
Mr. Parker?
Madam Moderator, I move that the town take no action on this article.
Second.
No action, once again. If you want to discuss this, requires a negative vote on no action. All those in favor of taking no action, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Motion passes unanimously. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to allocate and/or reserve from the Community Preservation Fund annual revenues the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administrative expenses, community preservation projects, and other expenses in fiscal year 2021, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation or take any other action thereto, to appropriate $21,620 from FY 2021 estimated revenues for committee administrative expenses, reserve $43,240 from FY 2021 estimated revenues for community housing reserve, reserve $43,240 from FY 2021 estimated revenues for historic resources reserve, reserve $43,240 from FY 2021 estimated revenues for open space and recreation reserve, and reserve $281,060 from fiscal year 2021 estimated revenues for budgeted reserve. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. With a vote of 6 in favor and none opposed, the Finance Committee recommends this article.
You may move as read by the moderator if
Okay,
you'd like
yeah,
to.
Madam Moderator, I move to allocate and/or reserve from the Community Preservation Fund revenues the amounts as set forth in Article 12.
Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. Motion passes unanimously. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to transfer from Community Preservation Act funds, in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44B, the sum of $175,000 with $148,301.41 from the Open Space and Recreational Fund balance, and $26,691.50 from the undesignated fund balance, in conformity with the application submitted to purchase a conservation restriction in conjunction with the Essex County Greenbelt Association, the Town of West Newbury Conservation Commission, and the Open Space Committee on 3 parcels of land containing approximately 38 acres of land located off Middle Street and as shown on Assessor's Map R27 as parcels 28, 28A, and 29. Said lots are also described in the deeds recorded with the Southern District Registry of Deeds in Book 6703, page 590, and Book 6547, page 419. Said conservation restriction is to be conveyed to the Town of West Newbury, said purchase to be subject to approval of the conservation restriction by all involved parties, and that the Board of Selectmen is to be authorized to execute, acknowledge, and deliver all grants, agreements, and such other instruments, including but not limited to the conservation restriction, in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 184, or any other applicable statute or regulation as may be necessary on behalf of the Town of West Newbury to effectuate the purchase of said conservation restriction, or take any other action relative thereto. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee, with a vote of 6 in favor and none opposed, the Finance Committee supports this article.
Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, I move to transfer from Community Preservation Act funds the sum of $175,000 with $148,308.41 from the Open Space and Recreation Fund balance and $26,691.50 from the undesignated fund balance, in conformity with the application submitted, to purchase a conservation restriction in conjunction with any other party on 3 parcels of land containing approximately 38 acres of land located off Middle Street and as shown on Assessor's Map R27 as parcels 28, 28A, and 29. Said lots are also described in the deeds recorded with the Southern Essex District Registry of Deeds in Book 6703, page 590, and Book 6547, page 419. Said conservation restriction is to be conveyed to the town of West Newbury. Said purchase to be subject to approval of the conservation restriction by all involved parties, and that the Board of Selectmen be authorized to execute, acknowledge, and deliver all grants, agreements, and such other instruments, including but not limited to the conservation restriction, in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 184, or any other applicable statute or regulation, as may be necessary on behalf of the town of West Newbury to effectuate the purchase of said conservation restriction.
Second.
Mr. Dodge.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is John Dodge. I chair the West Newbury Open Space Committee, and I live on Old Parish Way. I'd just like to go over 4 reasons why it's so important that we pass this so we can get this conservation restriction. So West Newbury is working with Greenbelt to preserve these 38 acres on the Artichoke Reservoir. The first reason is drinking water. The land is part of a catchment area for West Newbury's water wells just to the north of the property. It is widely accepted that protecting forests adjacent to water supplies is the most efficient, least costly way to keep drinking water sources clean. The second reason is flood mitigation. So keeping forests and wetlands intact through conservation is also critical to slowing down water runoff from high rainfall events. Could use one right now. And preventing neighborhoods downstream from flooding. Also, by slowing down water flow, and in the case of wetlands, holding water, these forests and wetlands also help keep water tables high in times of low rainfall. Third reason is cooling both air and water temperature, because trees help cool air and keep nearby waters cool, both of which obviously help wildlife and humans. The fourth and final reason is this parcel is just north of the Withers Conservation Area and creates 1 mile of new trails for the public to enjoy. And it provides another critical link and created a longer distance trail that starts south of Middle Street and goes all the way to Maudsley State Park. So just 2 more short points. West Newbury's $175,000 in CPA funds will be levered by more than $825,000 in outside funding to complete this acquisition. CPA funds already exist for this person, so will not result in any new taxes. At the end, the land will be owned by Greenbelt, which means Greenbelt will have the responsibility to manage and maintain the property over time. West Newbury, as was said earlier, will hold a conservation restriction on the property with the City of Newburyport and the Mass Department of Conservation Resources, which is also anticipated to help fund the acquisition. And just one other thing, I believe you're going to read an amended article. There was just some small technical issues.
The motion has already been read. Was there?
Well, Angus worked with.
The motion was read.
So that was the amended article? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Is there any further discussion?
Madam Moderator, Bob James, Water Commissioner. I just want to say that we support this issue or this article. West Newbury is funding a portion of it. The City of Newburyport is funding a third, and Greenbelt is funding the other third. And that is going to go a long way to protecting your water supply, because we get water from both our own well field at the lower end of town and from the city of Newburyport. So it's going to protect both sources. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Motion passes unanimously. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to transfer from Community Preservation Act funds, Historic Resources Reserve, the sum of $85,000 for the payment of debt service and related borrowing costs authorized at the November 4th, 2019 special town meeting associated with the preservation and restoration of the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Building. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Brad Bodwin speaking from the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee voted 2-3 to oppose this article.
Mr. Parker?
Madam Moderator, I move to transfer from Community Preservation Act funds, Historic Resources Reserve, the sum of $85,000 for the payment of debt service and related borrowing costs authorized at the November 4th, 2019 special town meeting associated with preservation of and restoration of the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Building.
Second.
Discussion.
Madam Moderator, Kevin Bowe from Maple Street. This seems to be, or should be, a pro forma amendment, or article. Could somebody in the Finance Committee tell me what the implication would be if we voted down this money? Would we not be in default of a bond?
Mr. Drury?
Forbes Dury, Finance Committee. The town manager is probably best able to answer that, but the short version is effectively not much. We have, once we bond, we're obligated to pay that debt. The 3 members who voted against this particular article are simply being consistent with the vote that we expressed last fall at the town meeting to oppose the project.
Madam Moderator, if I might make a comment. These 3 members are voting to prevent us from our fiscal obligation for a bond. And I understand you have personal beliefs about this, but the town meeting voted last year on this. And for people to use their own personal opinions to recommend the town act in a way that puts us at default or in danger of default, I think is very irresponsible of those 3 individuals. Thank you.
Mr. Drury?
Sir, I understand your point, but at the same time, I think that's what everyone does at town meeting, is to express their opinions in, excuse me, in one form or another through the way they vote on a particular article. So we're being consistent with the way we voted.
Mr. Swallow?
Steve Swallow, River Road. By a 2/3 majority, because this was bonded, the town appropriated the money for this project, Soldiers and Sailors Building. We need to pass this measure so our selectmen can carry out the will of the town for us and do it in the beautifully efficient and cost-effective manner that they can. And I read the rationale, and I, like Mr. Bowe, could not understand it. It seemed obstructive. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, a comment was directed in my way. I certainly respect anybody's opinion to vote as an individual. But when you take a responsibility to be a member of a town committee, you have a far greater responsibility than your personal opinion. You have a financial obligation, a fiduciary obligation. And I think that if members of the Finance Committee cannot meet that fiduciary obligation to the town, they should resign. Thank you.
Okay. I think we've had enough discussion on this. Yes?
Call the vote.
The motion, please let me proceed. The motion is to appropriate $85,000 for the payment of debt service. All those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. The ayes have it. Article 15, to see if the town will raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $229,020 to purchase a new dump truck with plow and spreader to replace a 2008 International dump truck with same or comparable equipment, and to dispose of the existing dump truck in accordance with town policy for disposition of surplus property. Was the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. We voted to take no action. 5 in favor, 1 opposed.
Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town take no action on this article.
Second.
Once again, if you wish to discuss this, you'll want to vote no. All those in favor of taking no action, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. It's unanimous to take no action. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $304,000 to replace and improve the fire alarm system in the Page School. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee unanimously supports this article.
Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, I move to transfer from the Capital Stabilization Fund the sum of $304,000 to replace and/or improve the fire alarm system in the Page School. Any remaining funds will be closed out to the undesignated fund balance at the close of fiscal year 2022.
Second.
Is there any discussion? This also requires a 2/3 vote since it involves transferring from a stabilization fund. Would all those opposed please raise your red cards? I see 1 opposed. All those in favor, please raise your green cards. I see 200 in favor. The motion passes. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $40,000 to replace failing sections of concrete flooring throughout the Page School. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee was unanimous in its support of this article.
Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, I move to transfer from the Capital Stabilization Fund the sum of $40,000 to replace failing sections of concrete flooring throughout the Page School. Any remaining funds will be closed out to the undesignated fund balance at the close of fiscal year 2023.
Second.
What was the source? What was the source of funding?
Oh, the source was capital stabilization.
Okay. Any discussion? Once again, this involves transfer from a stabilization fund and requires a 2/3 vote. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. All those in favor, please raise your green cards. The motion passes unanimously. Article 18, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $19,000 to replace the police cruiser radios and portable radios. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee was unanimous in its support of this article.
Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, I move to transfer from free cash the sum of $19,000 to replace the police cruiser radios and portable radios. Any remaining funds will be closed out to the undesignated fund balance at the close of fiscal year 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your cards, your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. The ayes have it. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the the sum of $4,000 for fire department emergency equipment, ice water rescue suits. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee was unanimous in its support of this article.
Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, I move to transfer from free cash the sum of $4,000 for the purchase by the fire department of emergency equipment, ice, water, rescue suits. Any remaining funds will be closed out to the undesignated fund balance at the close of fiscal year 2021.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. Motion's unanimous. Article 20, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $7,500 for fire department emergency equipment, 2 20-inch dual power fans. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee was unanimous in its support of Article 20.
Madam Moderator.
Mr. Parker.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I move to transfer from free cash the sum of $7,500 for the purchase by the fire department of emergency equipment, 2 20-inch dual power fans. Any remaining funds will be closed out to the undesignated fund balance at the close of fiscal year 2021.
Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. Motion passes unanimously. Article 21, to see if the town will vote to accept an exemption of real estate to the full amount of the taxable valuation of real property of the surviving parents or guardians of soldiers and sailors, members of the National Guard, and veterans pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22H. Such exemption to be available for tax years commencing July 1st, 2020. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, Gary Roberts, Finance Committee. The Finance Committee is unanimously in favor of this article.
Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town accept the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22H.
Is there any discussion?
Second.
Oops.
Sorry, I thought this would be more.
If not, all those in favor, please raise your green cards. All those opposed, please raise your red cards. The ayes have it. Article 22, to see if the town will vote to amend Section 6 of the Town Bylaws, Animal Bylaw, in order to establish a new disposal of waste section, to establish requirements related to the disposal and removal of dog waste, including the establishment and enforcement of fines for violations and other related amendments. You have no?
We had no vote.
Okay, there's no recommendation from the Finance Committee. Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town take no action on this article at this time.
Been moved to take no action. Once again, if you wish to discuss this, you want to vote no. All those in favor of taking no action, please raise your green cards. All those opposed to taking no action, please raise your red cards. The ayes have it. Article 23, to see if the town will vote to limit the total amount that may be expended from each revolving fund established pursuant to Section 40 of the bylaws of the town of West Newbury, to wit, Section 5.1, Summer Recreation Revolving Fund, $44,350. Section 5.2, JAR Library Fines and Penalties Revolving Fund, $10,000. Section 5.3, Police Vehicle Revolving Fund, $20,000. And Section 5.4, Pipe Stave, Mill Pond Care and Maintenance Revolving Fund, $5,000. There's no FinCom recommendation on this. Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town vote to limit the total amount that may be expended from each revolving fund as set forth in Article 23.
Second.
Discussion? If not, all those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Motion passes unanimously. Article 24. In the interest of saving time, I'm going to summarize Article 24, which is to amend the zoning bylaw about pets. The intention of the Board of Selectmen is to take no action on this article at this time.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town take no action on this article.
All those in favor, please raise your green cards. Yes. Oh, this is discussion on taking no action. Yes, okay.
So no action means we're not going to vote for it? Or?
We're just not going to discuss it at this time. Yeah, that's what no action means. If you wanted to discuss it, you would vote no on taking no action.
I just have a question.
Yes.
To the planning board, what's the rationale behind, Ed Nystrom, resident. What's the rationale behind 5A2C2? Why are we asking to remove that? Just, I'm curious as a...
Well, okay. I was attempting to speed things up a little bit because I knew that they were going to move no action on this. If you want to discuss it, I will read the whole motion and we can discuss it.
If it's no action, I can take it up offline with planning.
It will come back.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please raise your green card. This is taking no action. All those opposed, please raise your red card. Motion passes unanimously.
Madam Moderator?
Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, having voted on the prevailing side on Article 9, I would like to make a motion to reconsider the amount.
Motion to reconsider requires a simple majority vote. The motion on the floor is to reconsider the action that we took on Article 9.
Can there be discussion of why we're reconsidering? Can there be discussion of why we're reconsidering?
Hold on a minute, I have to look.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't know.
No, that's okay. I'll look. This doesn't come up very often. Yes, it is debatable. It is debatable. So we can discuss the motion to reconsider. Mr. Parker.
Madam Moderator, in the spirit of compromise, I would like to make a motion to change the amount.
We're discussing the motion to reconsider first.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, well,
Okay.
I'll let somebody else bring up a point then.
We would have to have a positive vote to reconsider before you can make an amendment.
But you, Madam Moderator?
Yes, hold on, no, hold on. We're sorting it out. Yes,
Can he say why he wants to reconsider?
yes.
Because he
The
wants-
discussion is on the motion to reconsider right now, so that's the only discussion that's in order, is why do you want to reconsider,
Yeah.
not what reconsideration do you want to make? Okay, not what change you want to make, but do you want to reconsider the vote taking under Article 9, and why?
Can I speak now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll tell you if it's.
So
out of order. What's the point of order?
Or a clarification from the chair, from the moderator. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Parker voted in favor of the amendment, but he voted for, he voted to lower it, but then he opposed the overall amendment. Is that correct, Mr. Parker?
No, that's incorrect.
So you voted affirmatively in both cases?
That's correct,
Thank
because
you.
I wanted to be able to make this motion.
The rule for reconsideration says that anyone moving for reconsideration has to have voted with the winning side. In an open town meeting like ours, where we don't do a roll call vote, it's rather difficult to determine. However, since Mr. Parker's sitting up here, you all saw him vote. But he did vote with the prevailing side on that motion.
So, having listened to and understanding the Finance Committee's thoughts, and being on the Board of Selectmen and having discussed this at some length and understanding the thoughts on this side, I think, in the spirit of compromise, that I would try to come to a number in the middle that will still have a significant impact on reducing current year tax rate, but lessening the overall reduction in the amount in the school stabilization fund going forward. Hence the motion.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are not voting on any proposed amendment at this time. You're simply voting on whether you would like to reconsider the vote taken under Article 9. Is there any more discussion on the motion to reconsider? If not, all those in favor of reconsideration, please raise your green card. All those opposed to reconsideration, please raise your red card. The motion to reconsider fails. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. However, I would remind everyone that there is one more town meeting with one article on it left to go today.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Now, if you do not wish to stay for the second special town meeting, that's fine, but please do not bottleneck at the exits. Make sure that you maintain social distance. And when it's time for us all to leave, I'm going to do it like a wedding so that we won't be stumbling over each other at the exit. So please stay seated and at the end of the meeting, and we will egress in a orderly fashion. Article 1. To see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $250,000 or any other sum from free cash to the professional services account to hire peer review consultants and legal experts to examine, advise, and review the proposed 40B project consisting of 152 units at 566 Main Street and 28 Coffin Street, or act in relation thereto. What is the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, this morning the Finance Committee met on this matter. The amount had been altered, so I don't know if that amount needs to be shared prior to sharing our vote.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so our vote was 3 in favor, 1 opposed, and 2 abstentions.
To a modified amount, which you will hear when the motion is made. Mr. Parker?
The motion will be coming from the floor.
Oh, it's coming from the floor? Okay, Mr. Doak.
Or from the field.
Yeah.
Madam Moderator, may we hear the selectmen's recommendation since it was not published? They just made it this morning.
Would you just go ahead and make the motion, and then I'll ask one of them to do that.
Okay. Madam Moderator, I move to transfer from free cash the sum of $100,000 for the Board of Selectmen to hire and retain professional services, including but not limited to legal, engineering, and environmental, to examine, advise, and review the proposed 40B project located at 566 Main Street and 28 Coffin Street. Any remaining funds will be closed out to the undesignated fund balance at the close of fiscal year 22.
Madam Moderator, could we ask the person making the motion to identify himself, please?
Mr. Doak, would you identify yourself?
It's Donald Doak on 14 Cortlandt Lane.
Thank you.
It's been requested that you give the recommendation of the selectmen since it has not been published.
Okay. The selectmen have discussed and agreed on a number of $100,000 to be sunset in 2 years. So that would be to sunset at the end of fiscal year 2022. There would be no limitation on how that money, the rate at which that money would be spent in the 2-year period. So it isn't necessarily split down the middle or biased to one year or the other. It would be used on an as-needed basis over the course of the 2-year period.
Now, I did not hear in the reading of the motion by Mr. Doak that there was a sunset clause. Did he say it?
It says, yes, it says that it will go back to undesignated funds at the end of fiscal year 22.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Doak.
May be recognized for discussion.
Yes.
Thank you. The article before us resulted in from a citizen's petition of over 385 signatures with the intent to ensure that we as the town of West Newbury have the appropriate fiscal resources to protect our interests during this 40B process and the proposed 152-unit development, the majority being duplexes with only 38 affordable units. But as stated in the plan, 638 cars, increasing the affordability in the town by 1.7%, but increasing market value homes by some 7%, causing a disproportionate amount of cost and problems to the town and citizens with minimal impact to affordable housing. Given this will likely drag on for 2+ years and beyond, we need to ensure we have the proper funding, that the town can be as comprehensive as possible. There is a provision under 40B where the zoning board of appeals may require the developer to pay for peer review based on what the developer has actually presented in his materials. Often these materials are missing information, so the intent would be that we could go beyond this through these funds and hire our own water, traffic, safety, hydrologist, and so forth. In addition to legal services, we've had the opportunity to work with John Witten, who is an expert in 40B and has guided the town to this point. So we very much ask for your support today to transfer this from free cash. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please raise your green card. All those opposed, please raise your red card. The ayes have it.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now, please keep your seats for just a minute. You can pack up your chairs, etc., but I'm going to ask you to leave row by row so that we do not bottleneck at the exit. Now, there's an exit right here to this parking lot.